Keanu Reeves had always known what it felt like to stand alone in the middle of a crowd. Even as the cameras flashed and the world called him a star, he felt the weight of being misunderstood. It was early morning when he arrived on the set of the new Red Bull commercial, his black backpack slung over his shoulder like any other worker carrying his lunch. He didn't have a special assistant or a trail of people fussing over him. He stepped out of his modest car, waved at the sleepy security guard, and made his way past the giant trucks with Red Bull logos. The place looked like a mini-city, busy, with people setting up lights and fixing cables. They all paused for a moment when they saw him. Some whispered, others pointed, but no one came close. Keanu knew why they stared. He wasn't like the other actors who showed up with an air of royalty. He always carried himself the same way: simple clothes, gentle smile, eyes that saw everyone, not just the important people. But this time, he could feel something different in the air. It wasn't just curiosity, it was something sharper. He felt it when he greeted a young man carrying boxes. The man didn't look him in the eyes. Instead, he looked away quickly, as if he was ashamed to be noticed by the star. Keanu tried to brush it off. Maybe it was nerves, maybe the kid was shy. But as he walked toward the main tent where the director waited, he overheard voices behind him. They didn't bother to whisper, "Look at him, thinking he's better than us. Did you hear what he said yesterday? Yeah. Who does he think he is to question how we shoot this? He's just an actor. Red Bull's paying him big bucks. He should shut up and stand where he's told." Keanu stopped. His heart sank a little, but he didn't turn around. He kept walking, but each step felt heavy. He had tried to speak up the day before when he noticed the stunt team pushing themselves too hard. One of them almost fell from a high rig. Keanu had seen enough accidents in his career to know one slip could change a life forever. He didn't mean to insult anyone. He just cared. But they took it the wrong way. Inside the tent, the director, a young man with slick hair and a sharp suit, didn't bother to greet Keanu properly. He looked up from his laptop with cold eyes. "You're late." Keanu checked his watch. He was 10 minutes early. "Sorry. I thought I was on time." The director smirked. "Time is money, Keanu. Let's not waste it with your philosophical talks about safety today, okay? We've got a brand to protect. Red Bull is about extreme, danger, thrill. If you're not up for it, we can find someone who is." Keanu looked him straight in the eyes, calm but firm. "I'm ready. I just want everyone to go home safe." The director waved him off like he was shooing a fly. "Get changed. You're doing the rooftop jump first. Don't worry. If you fall, maybe you'll get more headlines." Keanu bit his tongue. He didn't like arguments. He never raised his voice, but something inside him felt tight. He walked to the changing area, the whispers following him like a bad shadow. In the tiny trailer, he sat on the bench and stared at his reflection. His hair was a little messy. His eyes looked tired. He knew the rumors. Some said he was too old for stunts like this. Some said he was difficult because he asked too many questions. Some just wanted to see him fall, literally and publicly. As he changed into the stunt gear, he thought about all the people who would see this commercial. They would see the polished final cut, the fast cars, the explosion, the jump. They would never know about the stunt man who sprained his ankle yesterday, the one who was too scared to tell the director he needed rest. They would never know about the girl on the crew who worked 18 hours straight, hiding her tears when she messed up the lighting because her hands were shaking. They would never know how the brand image was built on the backs of tired, sometimes broken people. Keanu stepped out of the trailer, his mind made up. He walked to the rooftop set, the city skyline behind him like a painted wall. The wind was sharp up there. The stunt coordinator gave him a nod, eyes downcast. He was young, maybe 25, with a scar on his chin that looked fresh. Keanu put a hand on his shoulder. "Are you sure you're okay with this setup?" Keanu asked softly. The young man hesitated, looked over his shoulder, then back at Keanu. "The harness is old. The rig should be replaced, but they said there's no time." Keanu's heart pounded. He looked over at the director, who was laughing with a group of brand executives. No one cared. They only wanted the shot. Keanu stepped away from the edge and took a deep breath. He could feel the eyes on him, the crew, the director, the camera operators. They expected him to just do it, jump, smile, pretend he was fearless. He could see the brand logo in his mind, the slogan about wings, the promise of impossible energy. But in that moment, Keanu knew he couldn't be silent. He walked to the camera, signaled the main operator to stop rolling. The chatter stopped. The laughter died. The director's face turned red as he stormed over. "What the hell are you doing?" "Keanu, we're losing daylight." Keanu turned to the crew, his voice steady, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "This rig is unsafe. The harness is old. The coordinator said so himself. If one person falls, we all lose more than daylight. I've seen what happens when we ignore safety. I won't jump until this is fixed." The director exploded. "You can't do this. You're under contract. Do you know how much this costs?" Keanu looked at him, unflinching. "Then fire me. But I won't let anyone get hurt just for a commercial." Silence fell over the rooftop. The crew shifted uncomfortably. Some hid their smiles. Some looked down, ashamed that they hadn't spoken up first. The young stunt coordinator's eyes filled with tears, though he tried to hide them. For the first time that morning, someone saw him, really saw him, not just a disposable piece of the show. The director huffed, cursing under his breath, and turned away to make phone calls. Keanu stood there, feeling the wind on his face. He knew he had made enemies that day. He knew the headlines might twist it into something ugly. But he also knew that sometimes being humiliated was worth it if it meant protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. As he looked out over the city, he felt a small hand tap his arm. He turned to see the young stunt coordinator, his cheeks wet with tears he could no longer hide. "Thank you, sir," the young man whispered. Keanu smiled gently, patting his shoulder. "You don't have to call me sir. We're all human here." And in that simple sentence, on that windy rooftop, Keanu Reeves exposed a truth bigger than any brand slogan. That kindness was the real energy that gave people wings. The news spread faster than Keanu expected. By the time he got back to his tiny trailer, his phone was already buzzing with messages. Some were from people he trusted, old friends who had seen him go through worse. Others were from people he barely knew, ready to twist the story for clicks. The headlines came out within hours. Keanu Reeves halts $1 million shoot. Keanu throws tantrum on set. Keanu is difficult. Some said he was trying to ruin the brand. Some called him a washed-up actor who didn't know how to follow orders. He sat on the narrow bench, staring at the floor as the rain began to fall outside. Each drop on the metal roof sounded like an accusation. But beneath the noise, Keanu felt a strange calm. He knew he had done the right thing. Even if they fired him, even if he never worked with that company again, he knew he had protected someone who needed it. He closed his eyes and thought about the young stunt coordinator. The fear in the boy's eyes reminded him of his own early days in Hollywood when he was young and scared to speak up. Back then, he did whatever he was told. He jumped when they said jump. He kept quiet when things felt wrong. He had watched friends get hurt. One bad landing, one broken cable, one missed step. They were the real heroes, the stunt people, the crew who made everything look easy. He had promised himself a long time ago that he would never let someone feel alone on his watch. Maybe people would mock him now, but he would sleep with a clear heart. A gentle knock pulled him out of his thoughts. He opened the door to see a young woman standing there, her raincoat dripping wet. She was one of the lighting assistants, her name tag half covered in mud. "Mr. Reeves, can I come in for a second?" He nodded and moved aside. She stepped in, shivering a little. Her eyes darted around like she was afraid to be seen. I wanted to say thank you. No one's ever stood up to him before," she said, voice barely above a whisper. Keanu gave her a warm look. "You don't have to thank me. You deserve to work safely." She nodded, tears gathering in the corners of her eyes. The director, he told me if I complained again, he'd make sure I never worked in this town. When you said what you did today, it felt like maybe we matter too." Keanu felt a deep ache in his chest. He reached for a towel and handed it to her so she could dry her hands. "You do matter, more than any shot or logo." She took a deep breath. as if the weight she carried all season finally fell away. They talked for a few minutes, not about work or gossip, but about simple things. Her dream to light big movies, her family back home, how she had come to the city with nothing but hope, and an old camera. For a moment, the rain outside felt like music, washing away the tension. When she left, Keanu sat there alone again. But it didn't feel the same. He realized that truth was like the rain. It might be cold, it might make people uncomfortable, but it also cleaned away the dirt. Later that evening, the director knocked on his door. This time, there was no arrogance in his voice. He didn't even look Keanu in the eyes. "The producers are furious," he spat. "We've got people on calls all day. Red Bull might pull the plug. They're blaming you. They want you to apologize. Do you understand?" Keanu stayed seated, calm and quiet. "What should I apologize for? Caring about the crew?" The director's face turned red. "Don't play the hero. You're not irreplaceable. You think people won't line up to take your role. You're aging. You need us more than we need you." Keanu let the insult hang in the air. He wasn't angry. He felt sorry for the man who saw people as tools. "If you want me to leave, just say so," he said softly. The director sneered. "You'd like that, wouldn't you? Playing the victim for your fans. You won't be the good guy in the final cut. I'll make sure of it." Keanu nodded. "Do what you must. But tomorrow, when you look at this rooftop and the people working here, remember that they're not disposable." The director slammed the door behind him, the trailer rattling from the force. Keanu leaned back, staring at the small window. The rain had stopped. The sky was dark, but the clouds were moving away, revealing a few stars. He thought of the stunt coordinator, the girl with the light rig, all the people who stayed unseen. They were the reason he kept going. The cameras could turn off, the lights could fade. But if he could give them even a little courage to stand up for themselves, then the humiliation was worth every bruise on his reputation. The next morning, when Keanu returned to the set, something had changed. The rig was replaced, new safety lines were installed. The stunt coordinator stood taller, giving instructions with more confidence. The girl from the night before was working the lights with steady hands. Some people still whispered behind Keanu's back, but others nodded at him, a silent thank you in their eyes. The director stayed away, eyes glued to his phone, sending frantic messages to calm the furious executives. But the crew knew. They all knew who had spoken up when it mattered. They saw a man who didn't just wear kindness like a costume. He lived it, even when it hurt him. Keanu stood at the rooftop again, the city below waking up to another day. The harness fit snug around his waist. The new cables gleamed under the morning sun. He looked at the young stunt coordinator and smiled. "Ready?" The boy grinned. "We're ready, sir." Keanu took a deep breath, feeling the wind brush his hair back. He wasn't fearless, he wasn't unbreakable, but he was real, and for him, that was enough. As the camera rolled, he stepped forward, not just for the shot, but for everyone who ever needed to be seen, heard, and protected. And when he jumped, he didn't feel humiliated. He felt free. When the final shot of the rooftop jump was done, Keanu landed safely. The harness held strong, the cables didn't snap, and the young stunt coordinator gave him a thumbs up from below. The crew cheered, but it wasn't the usual cheer for a dangerous stunt pulled off. It was different, softer, more human. It was like they were cheering for themselves too. They had made something better than a commercial. They had shown that they could stand together, even in an industry that too often treated them like shadows. After the cheers died down, Keanu stayed behind on the rooftop, watching the sun slip behind the tall buildings. He felt a tap on his shoulder. It was the stunt coordinator again, this time holding 2 cups of coffee. The boy's hands trembled slightly, but there was a spark in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "Can I sit with you?" he asked. Keanu nodded. They sat side by side, legs dangling over the edge of the rooftop, the city buzzing below them like a giant machine that never slept. For a few moments, they didn't talk. They just listened to the distant horns, the soft hum of air conditioners, and the beat of their own hearts. It was quiet enough for the young man to find his words. "I was going to quit," he said finally. "Before you spoke up, I thought maybe I wasn't cut out for this. I almost fell yesterday because I didn't say anything. I was so scared of losing my job." Keanu looked at him, his own heart heavy with old memories. "You don't have to be fearless to be strong. You just have to do the right thing, even when you're scared." The boy's eyes filled with tears again. "It's just, people think you're this big hero, but I've seen how they talk about you. I heard what they said when you left the tent yesterday." They laughed. Keanu let out a soft laugh of his own, shaking his head. "I know, people will always find something to laugh at. Maybe I look foolish to them. Maybe I'm too old or too soft. But kindness is never foolish. If they can't see that, then that's their burden, not mine." They sat there until the coffee went cold in their hands. When the boy stood to leave, he turned back and said, "You changed this set, you know, even if they don't admit it." Double quotes Keanu watched him go, a small smile playing on his lips. He felt no pride in that moment, only a quiet relief that someone, even just one person, felt safer because he had refused to stay silent. When Keanu finally walked back to his trailer, he found a folded note slipped under his door. It was written on the back of a call sheet, the handwriting shaky. It read, "You probably don't know me. I work with the rigging crew. I've seen a lot of people get hurt because no one speaks up. Thank you for being different. We won't forget." He sat down, holding the note like it was the most precious thing in the world. His phone kept buzzing with calls from his manager, texts from the producers demanding an explanation, threats about contracts and bad press. He ignored them all. For Keanu, the real reward was in that simple, handwritten note. It was worth more than the check he'd receive for the commercial. The next day, the tension on set was thick enough to taste. The director barely looked at him. The Red Bull executives came down from their shiny offices to watch. They stood with their arms crossed, their suits too clean for a place full of sweat and cables. They didn't see the bruises on the crew's arms or the blisters on their feet. They only saw the money. When Keanu walked onto the next setup, a high-speed chase shot with stunt drivers, the atmosphere was different. The drivers were quiet, checking their seatbelts twice, their helmets 3 times. Keanu saw the same fear in their eyes that he had seen on the rooftop. He walked up to them, putting a hand on the hood of one of the cars. "You guys good?" he asked. One of the drivers, an older man with gray stubble and tired eyes, shook his head. "They want us to take the corner faster than we've rehearsed. The tires can't grip at that speed on this road. They just want it to look crazier." Keanu's jaw clenched. He looked around for the director, who was laughing with the executives again. It was always the same, more danger, more drama, but never more care for the people risking their lives. He climbed onto a crate, waving his arms to get everyone's attention. The noise died instantly. The drivers stopped tinkering with their cars. The riggers put down their tools. Even the extras turned to look at him. "Listen," Keanu said, his voice strong but kind. "I know we all want to make something amazing here, but no one is dying for a commercial. If you feel something is unsafe, you speak up. And if they don't listen to you, they'll have to deal with me. You hear me?" A small ripple of nods went through the crowd. The older driver cracked a smile for the first time. The director, red-faced, stormed toward him again. "What is this now? Are you trying to run my set? You're just an actor." Keanu stepped down from the crate, calm as ever. "No, I'm just a human who doesn't want to see another human get hurt for your shot." The director laughed bitterly. "Fine, ruin it then. If they won't do it, I'll find drivers who will." But this time, it wasn't just Keanu who spoke up. The older driver stepped forward, pulling off his helmet. "No, you won't. We're not doing it either." One by one, the drivers followed. The riggers nodded. The extras stood behind them. For the first time, the director wasn't yelling at just one man. He was facing a crew that had found its voice. Keanu didn't smile in victory. He didn't need to. He just looked at each of them, making sure they knew they were seen. It wasn't about him. It was about what they had chosen to stand for. Later, alone again in his trailer, Keanu finally answered one of his manager's calls. The voice on the other end was panicked. "Keanu, they're threatening to sue. They want you to apologize publicly. They're saying you humiliated the brand." "What do I tell them?" Keanu leaned back, listening to the quiet hum of the city outside. "Tell them I'm sorry for nothing," he said softly. "Tell them I'm sorry we didn't speak up sooner." And in his heart, he knew sometimes the hardest thing wasn't doing the stunt. It was standing still when the world expected you to jump and saying, "No more." The storm did not calm down after the high-speed chase was canceled. If anything, it grew worse. When Keanu left the set that evening, he found reporters waiting outside the gate. They weren't there to ask him real questions. They wanted a reaction, a headline, anything that could twist the truth. He walked past them without a word, his hood pulled over his head. The flashes from their cameras made the night feel like it was filled with lightning. One young reporter, her voice shaky, called out, "Keanu, do you really hate working with Red Bull? Did they humiliate you on purpose?" He paused, looked at her with eyes that held no anger, only deep sadness. "No one should feel humiliated for caring about others," he said softly. That was all he said before stepping into his car, the door closing with a quiet finality that left the reporters empty. Handed. The next few days turned into a storm of gossip. Some online articles praised him for standing up. Others painted him as a washed-up star clinging to relevance. People debated whether he had the right to stop a shoot that big. Some said he cost hundreds of jobs. Others said he saved lives. The truth was somewhere in the middle, but the noise was so loud that it drowned out the real people at the heart of it. The crew who now felt brave enough to speak up to back at the set. The atmosphere had shifted completely. The director, pressured by the producers, tried to carry on as if nothing had happened. But people noticed the changes. New safety equipment appeared overnight. Stunt coordinators checked every cable twice. Drivers rehearsed until they felt confident, not until they were exhausted. People still whispered about Keanu, but the fear in their eyes was gone. They didn't fear him. They feared what he reminded them about themselves, that they deserved to be safe, respected, and heard. One afternoon, as he sat alone on a stack of sandbags near the catering truck, a young woman approached him. She was tiny, with dark hair tied back and a tattoo of a small bird on her wrist. She held a boom mic in her hand, her work vest too big for her slim frame. Her name tag said Minna. "Can I sit with you?" she asked shyly. Keanu gestured to the spot next to him. Of course, Minna sat down, balancing her heavy mic on her knees. She didn't speak for a while. Instead, she picked at the plastic lid of her lunch container. "I was told not to talk to you," she said finally, her voice barely above the hum of the generators. "They said you were a problem." Keanu smiled gently. "I get that a lot." She let out a nervous laugh, then fell quiet again. "My brother did stunts on another job years ago. He fell, the cable snapped. The company blamed him, said he didn't check the rig properly. But he did. I know he did." Keanu looked at her, his eyes soft but sharp. "I'm so sorry." Minna wiped her eyes roughly with the back of her hand. "It's just, when you stopped the rooftop shot, I thought about him. I thought maybe if someone like you had been there, he'd still be here." The words hung in the air between them, heavy but true. Keanu placed a hand over hers, grounding her. "We can't change what happened to him, but we can make sure no one else has to go through that." Minna nodded, the tension in her shoulders easing just a little. "Thank you for not being scared." Keanu shook his head. "I'm always scared. I just don't let fear make my choices." After that day, more people came to him quietly. A grip with a bad back who'd been lifting heavy gear for years without proper help. A young actor who'd almost drowned during a shoot because no one checked the water tank. Each story was like a crack in a dam. The more people spoke up, the more the truth poured out. The brand reps hated it. The director hated it. But the crew, the heartbeat of the production, found a strange new strength in it. One night, Keanu sat in his trailer, the script for the final scenes spread out on his small table. His phone buzzed again and again. It was his agent this time, voice tired and frustrated. "Keanu, I can't protect you from this. They're trying to cut you out of the campaign altogether. They want to reshoot with someone younger, someone who won't make trouble. They're also saying you broke your contract." Keanu rubbed his temples. "Maybe they're right. Are you saying you're okay with losing this deal? This is millions, Keanu. This is a brand that will bury." You in good press if you play along." Keanu's laugh was soft but sad. "Maybe I'm just too old for good press." His agent sighed. "What do you want me to do?" Keanu thought about it. About the rooftop, the stunt rig, the drivers, Mina's brother, the countless faces who never got a headline. Tell them they can find someone else, but tell them this. 2. People are watching now. If they think replacing me will silence the truth, they're wrong. He hung up, the silence in his trailer so deep it rang in his ears. But inside, he felt no regret. Not one drop. The next morning, when he walked on set for what might be his last day, something happened that took him by surprise. The entire crew, every single person, stood waiting for him by the main gate. From the youngest intern to the oldest rigger, they formed a line. They weren't carrying signs or chanting. They were just standing there, looking at him. Eyes full of something so rare in that business, respect. The young stunt coordinator stepped forward, his helmet under his arm. "We heard they're cutting you out," he said. "If they do, we walk to." Keanu's eyes widened. "No, you don't have to do that for me." Mina, standing beside him with her heavy boom mic resting on her shoulder, shook her head. "We're not doing it for you. We're doing it for each other. You showed us we could." Keanu felt something break open in his chest, not pain, not fear, but a warm flood of hope. He knew then that humiliation could turn into something powerful when you refused to carry it alone. In that moment, under the bright studio lights, surrounded by people who'd finally found their voices, Keanu Reeves understood that this fight was bigger than him. He had exposed something they could no longer hide, and he was ready for whatever came next. Keanu stood among the crew, feeling the soft buzz of voices around him like a hum of electricity. The line of people stretched back, a river of faces, that all shared the same quiet fire. They weren't yelling or holding signs, yet their message was louder than any protest could ever be. They were tired of being invisible. They were tired of being afraid. The director, who had spent days trying to keep his control over everyone, looked pale when he saw them. He came storming out from his small office near the set, his phone still pressed to his ear. "What is this? A circus? You think standing here will save you all? You're all replaceable. Every single one of you." The stunt coordinator stepped forward, helmet in hand. His voice didn't shake this time. "Then replace us, but not today." The director's jaw tightened, but he turned away. Unable to look at them, Keanu could almost feel the man's fear. Not fear of losing a commercial, but fear of losing the power he'd held over people who'd never dared speak up before. It was slipping through his fingers like sand. Keanu stepped closer to the crew, lowering his voice so only they could hear him. "You don't owe me anything. You don't have to do this." Mina, standing near the front, raised her chin. "We're not doing it for you, Keanu. You gave us the push, but this is ours now." He smiled, his eyes a little wet. "Then don't lose it, even when I'm gone." The production ground to a halt for hours as the producers flew in from their high-rise offices to fix the mess. They tried to divide people, pulling them aside, offering private deals, whispering promises of bigger paychecks if they'd just get back to work. But each person looked at Keanu, then at each other, and shook their heads. They had tasted what it felt like to be more than shadows. They weren't giving it up. Inside a dusty back room near the set, the final meeting took place. Keanu sat at a long table across from a group of executives in expensive suits. They stared at him like he was a child who needed scolding. One of them, a woman with sharp glasses and a voice like ice, leaned forward. "Mr. Reeves, this entire project was built around you, your face, your name, and now look at the damage you've caused. Millions lost, schedules destroyed. Do you feel proud?" Keanu didn't flinch. "I don't feel proud or ashamed. I feel responsible for the people who make your millions possible." Another man, older and balding, tapped his pen on the table. "The brand is about extreme risk. Adrenaline. People crave it. It's what sells. Do you think they want to see your sad little safety speech?" Keanu looked down at his hands, then back up at them. "People crave truth. They crave humanity. Maybe you don't see that yet." The woman leaned back, crossing her arms. "You're fired, Mr. Reeves. We'll re-edit every frame you're in." We'll find someone else who understands how to stay in line. Keanu nodded slowly, like he'd expected this all along. Then I wish you luck. But remember, the people who work for you, they're not as silent as you think. Not anymore. He stood, pushing his chair back quietly. As he opened the door to leave, he saw the young stunt coordinator waiting in the hallway. The boy's face was pale, but his eyes shone with a fierce spark. They're really letting you go? He asked. Keanu shrugged gently. They were always going to. So what happens now? Keanu smiled, the lines around his eyes deep and kind. Now you take care of each other. Word spread within the hour. Keanu was officially off the project. Some news outlets called it the downfall of a once beloved star. Others called it the boldest stand an actor had taken in years. But to the crew, it was something different. It was a seed planted in the cracks of a broken system. The next morning, Keanu packed his few belongings from the trailer, a half-read paperback, a thermos that smelled of old coffee, and a handful of scribbled notes with reminders to check on people who never got checked on. He stepped out to find the entire crew waiting again. No cameras, no press, just them, standing in the early light. Quiet but strong. Minna was there too, her boom mic resting on the ground at her feet. She stepped forward, pulling something from her pocket. It was a small, battered pin, an old metal feather. This was my brother's, she said, her voice trembling. He used to say, we fly together or we don't fly at all. I think he'd want you to have it. Keanu closed his hand around the pin, feeling its weight. Thank you, he whispered. But keep it. Wear it when you work. Remind them that you matter. She slipped it back into her pocket, her chin lifting in a silent promise. We will. Keanu looked around, taking in each face. Bruised hands, tired eyes, new courage. He knew they would all go back to jobs that asked too much, paid too little, and chewed through people like gears in a machine. But maybe, just maybe, they would speak up now. Maybe they would stand for each other when no one else would. As he walked away from the set for the last time, his reputation in pieces behind him, Keanu felt strangely free. The humiliation they had tried to bury him with had become something else, a spark that would not go out. And somewhere deep down, he knew this was not the end. It was just the beginning. Weeks passed after Keanu walked off the set for the last time. The headlines burned hot for a while, then faded like they always did. The new commercial was shot with another actor, a younger, louder face who didn't ask too many questions. The Red Bull ads rolled out on giant screens in the middle of the city. Cars flew through flames. Drivers flipped motorcycles over rooftops. People cheered, clapped, and then moved on. But somewhere behind the bright lights and expensive edits, something had shifted. A story grew in the cracks between the flashing images, a story that the studio could not control. Whispers turned into conversations, and conversations turned into phone calls. Crew members who'd never spoken about what they saw on sets began to share their truths. More stories came out, not just about that one commercial, but about other jobs too. People posted photos of bruised arms, broken helmets, old safety gear patched together with duct tape. They wrote, "We matter too," and people listened. Keanu stayed quiet in the middle of it all. He didn't give big interviews. He didn't fight the headlines that called him washed up or difficult. He stayed in his small house, watering his garden, riding his old motorcycle when the sky was clear. Sometimes he sat at a tiny cafe in the city, sipping coffee with a notebook open on the table. He filled it with thoughts, not about how to fix the world, but about how to keep planting seeds in it. One afternoon, as he sat under the faded awning of that cafe, a young man approached him. He was nervous, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, a battered backpack slung over one shoulder. "Mr. Reeves?" he asked softly. Keanu looked up, his gentle smile easing the boy's nerves. "Yes." The boy pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. It was a printout of an old photo. Keanu standing on the rooftop with the young stunt coordinator beside him. Both of them wore harnesses. Both of them were smiling. "That's my brother," the boy said, his eyes wet but proud. He said, "You saved his life." He said he's working better now, safer. He doesn't come home scared anymore. Keanu felt his throat tighten. He took the photo in his hands, tracing the lines of the rooftop with his thumb. "He's a brave man. I didn't save him. He saved himself." The boy nodded. "He said to tell you, they're doing it different now. They have meetings. They check the rigs twice. They even got the company to hire more safety officers. He said it's not perfect yet, but it's better." Keanu handed the photo back, his eyes warm. "Tell him to keep going. It's worth it." The boy hesitated, then asked, "Do you miss it? The fame? The big sets?" Keanu looked past him, watching the cars roll down the busy street, each person inside carrying their own battles. "Some days I do, some days I don't. But I don't miss staying quiet." The boy thanked him and left, the photo clutched to his chest like a treasure. Keanu sat back, his coffee gone cold, his heart strangely light. He thought of Minna and the pinch he had shown him. He thought of all the small voices that had found each other. They would face backlash. They would be called difficult, ungrateful, even liars. But now they knew they weren't alone. One evening, Keanu was invited to a small gathering, not an award show, not a red carpet, just a group of crew workers who wanted to say thank you. They met in an old warehouse that smelled of sawdust and coffee. They brought folding chairs, cheap pizza, and stories that they were no longer afraid to share. Minna was there too, her bird pin now clipped to her vest. She caught his eye across the room, her smile wide and real. "We're thinking of starting something," she told him later, her voice strong. "A network for crew, stunt people, drivers, grips, anyone who needs help standing up when it's not safe to stand alone." Keanu's eyes sparkled with quiet pride. "That's beautiful." She laughed softly. "We're calling it the Wings Project because you gave us ours." He shook his head. "I didn't give you anything. You always had them. You just needed to remember." The night went long, filled with laughter and hard truths. They didn't fix the world in one evening, but they reminded each other that the world was theirs to shape, not just survive. When Keanu left the warehouse, the city lights blinked like distant stars. The wind carried a chill, but it felt fresh, not bitter. He walked to his bike, the streets empty, the night wide open before him. The humiliation that once threatened to crush him had become something else, a reminder that courage sometimes looks like standing still when the world says jump. And as he rode away, the city behind him, he knew this was the story that would outlive every headline, the story of people who finally saw themselves not as tools, but as humans worth protecting. A story that would give wings to voices that had stayed silent for too long. And somewhere deep in the wind, Keanu Reeves smiled.